Okay, guys, I wanted to record a video review with a PowerPoint I shared with you yesterday. So here it goes. We are talking about the bubonic plague, also referred to as just the plague, the Black Death. Um, but the bubonic plague was the worst pest epidemic in history, at least the worst one ever recorded that we know about. So when we say pest epidemic, we call it that because it was spread by a pest, in this case, a rat. All right. So the bubonic plague, it's caused by a by a bacteria. Okay. Um, that would be present in rats, and it could be present in, other animals. Could have it, but rats were really common around medieval Europe. They're still common today, but you don't see them running around like you would then. So the rat would have the bacteria, and fleas on the rat would drink the rat's blood. All right. Um, the bacteria would multiply in the flea. And then, because of the conditions, people would often have rats in their homes. Rats would be in the streets. They'd be in close contact with people, and fleas would jump from the rats to the humans, bite the human, and then of course the human would then have the plague bacteria. Okay. So the bubonic plague came from Asia, but it eventually spreads to Europe, and it takes a couple years for it to really spread all over Europe. You have to remember travel is a lot slower back then, so while the current epidemic we're dealing with spread in a matter of months, obviously people travel a lot faster, a lot farther now. So it took a couple of years for it to spread back then. But it spread over almost all of Europe. So Black Death spreads from Asia to Europe, right? Uh, and it came mostly it was introduced to Europe through merchant ships. So ships would sail from, say, like the Middle East, land in Italy, land in Spain, and the rats from those ships would go on the land, and the fleas from those rats would bite people. Right? Um, the plague, there was a few different types. Uh, the most common type would cause these huge swellings to occur in your lymph nodes, they're called buboes. So like people would have these huge black swelling, spots on their bodies, right? And that was very common. But also some people had their lungs infected, and when that was the case, the disease could spread through the air. But it could kill people in less than a day. Sometimes it took a few days usually, but it could kill people very fast. And it was a very unpleasant death, involved quite a bit of suffering. Okay. This is sort of the getup of plague doctors, what they would wear. See, they even had masks back then that they would wear, but definitely they looked pretty creepy. Ring Around the Rosie, okay, is kind of descended from the plague. The rosy rash was a result of the plague. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with the song or the poem, but it's descended from the time of the plague. So the overall impact, about a third of the people in Europe die. Okay, so 1 of every 3 people die of the plague. And the whole economic system, which is built on the manor system and feudalism, ends. It can't withstand the plague, and we start to have a more modern economic system emerge. And that's basically the end result. That was very brief, but it hopefully gives you a little more idea of how the plague happened and what occurred because of it. We're going to go into more detail in the coming days.